Jacob, the one that God loved, the one that God protected, the one that God grew, the one that gave us the 12 tribes of Israel, this is the end for him. Also, we're going to talk about the end for Joseph. So we're literally turning the page in the book. When we start up again in our series here, we'll be talking about people like Moses. But right now we need to finish up with these two servants of God. God did great things through them. He did mighty things. And now he has taken his servants and he is finishing their story. So Jacob dies. Genesis 47, 27 through 31. So Israel, Jacob, dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen. And they had possessions there, and they grew, and they multiplied exceedingly. And Jacob lived in that land of Egypt 70 years. So the length of Jacob's life was 147 years. Think about it, folks. I don't want to live to 147, thank you. Okay? But he did. Back then, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was what they ate or something, but they lived a lot longer. You know, maybe it was they didn't have all the preservatives in their food or something. But they lived a lot longer back then. When the time drew near that Israel must die, he called his son Joseph to him. Now, if I found in your favor, in your sight, hear the statement, please put your hand under my thigh. We've heard that before. Okay? Isaac. Okay? When Abraham wanted a daughter, wanted a wife for his son, he had a servant come, and what did he say? Put your hand under my thigh. Okay? Seems unusual to us, but it's a Jewish custom. That's how you make an oath to somebody that you're going to do something. Put your hand under my thigh and deal kindly and truly with me. Please do not bury me in Egypt, but let me lie with my fathers. You shall carry me out of Egypt and bury me in their burying place. And he said, I will do as you have said. Then he said, swear to me. And he swore to him. So Israel bowed himself on the head of his bed. Chapter 47, 1 through 26. Then Joseph fell on his father's face, and he wept and he kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. Now, embalming is not a normal thing for an Israelite. And not everybody in Egypt that died got embalmed. It was selected for royalty. So Joseph is treating his father as if he would, what does God say? Honor thy father and thy mother. Joseph is honoring his father and giving him a royal burying here. So the physicians embalmed Israel. 40 days were required for him. So such are the days required for those who are embalmed. And the Egyptians mourned for him 70 days. Okay? All this that you're hearing there, this would not happen for a commoner in Egypt. Only for a member of the royal family. Now when the days of his mourning were past, Joseph spoke to the household of Pharaoh, saying, if I have found favor in your eyes, please speak in the hearing of Pharaoh, saying, here's my question. Joseph had the ear of Pharaoh. Why is he sending somebody to Pharaoh? This is the time of his mourning. He doesn't want to leave Dad. Okay? I remember when my dad passed away. When he passed away, there had just been a big thing that happened in Alabama where they found this crematorium that wasn't cremating people, and they found all these people. So my dad looked at me and my brother and he says, you don't take your eyes off of me until you have my ashes in your hand. Okay? My brother volunteered. He said, I'll be the one. You take care of the stuff here at the funeral home. I'll be the one. And he went with my dad, and he made sure that he stood there and watched Dad go into the crematorium, and he sat outside in the lobby until everything was done. he had to stay an extra, I think it was like 6 hours because everything had to cool down, right? But he never took his eyes off of Dad that whole time and brought him back. Okay? That's honoring your parents and your parents' wishes. Joseph was going to honor his parents' wish. And Pharaoh said, "Go up and bury your father, as he made you swear." Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went up the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of the house, and all the elders of the land of Egypt, as well as the house of Joseph, his brothers, and his father's house. Only their little ones, their flocks, and their herds were left in the land of Goshen. You can imagine this is a huge crowd. Now, since the seniors of Egypt are there, that means the royal family is going there. You can imagine here comes all the army too to protect them, to make sure. So can you imagine this coming into your country? I imagine that people thought, what, are we under attack here? Here comes all these Egyptians with all these people. And they went, and there went with him both chariots and horsemen. It was a very large gathering. When they came to the threshing floor of Atad, I know it's out of order, but could you put that picture up there for me? This threshing floor you see here, okay, threshing floor is where they would take the wheat and they would beat it. And then they would thresh it. What is threshing? They would take the wheat and either the wind, if the wind was blowing, that was a good thing. If the wind wasn't blowing, then women would stand on the side with big fans. You know the fans you wave yourself when it gets hot in here? Well, they had big ones like that, and they would literally make wind with those fans, and they'd throw the grain up, and after they had beaten the grain would fall down, and the chaff would get blown away. That's what they did in a threshing floor. They had gone to this threshing floor because it's close to where they needed to go. But that actual threshing floor is still there today, thousands upon thousands of years. The Bible comes to life when we can see that the things it talks about, there it is. It's real. Look at the house behind it. That's a modern house. Okay? So these things are real. The Bible's not a fairy tale. It's not a story. It's history. It's biblical history and God's word to us. And it makes it real when we can see that. Which is beyond Jordan. So they had to cross Jordan into Israel, or Canaan, and they mourned there with a great and solemn lamentation. He observed 7 days of mourning for his father. And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning at the threshing floor of Atad, they said, "This is a deep mourning of the Egyptians. Moreover, it is called Abel Mizraim, which is beyond Jordan. And his sons did for him as he had commanded them. And his sons carried him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah." Remember back? Abraham bought that cave from the people of Canaan and had title to it. And what he asked Joseph to do is, you take me back home to our home place, to the cave that we've already purchased, that's our burying place, and put me there with my fathers, put me there with Abraham and Isaac and the rest of our kin. That's where I want to be buried. Imagine how much it costs to do this. This wasn't some small thing. The Egyptians, and they spent a lot of money to make this happen, to honor the father. Why? Because of what Joseph had done for them. If it wasn't for Joseph, most of that country would have died. This is some of the thing about the story here, is there was a large die-off in all the countries of that area. There was no food. People died of starvation. Only in Egypt was there food, and that's because of what Joseph had done. Joseph had saved that nation, so the Egyptians were willing to do anything he wanted them to do. And that's why they would spend the money to do this. Before Mamre, which Abraham bought with the field from Ephraim the Hittite as a property for a burial place. And after he had buried his father, Joseph returned to Egypt, he and his brothers and all that went up with him to bury their father. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, here we change the story. Dad's dead. Dad's not here to protect us anymore. We know what we did to Joseph. Is this the time Joseph is going to take revenge on us? There's fear in their voice. They're worried that now that Dad's not there to protect him anymore, Joseph's going to remember that they threw him in a pit, were going to kill him, and sold him off to a bunch of Amalekites that took him into Egypt. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, "Perhaps Joseph will hate us and may actually repay us for all the evil which we did to him." So they sent a messenger to Joseph saying, "Before your father died, he commanded, saying," okay, using Dad's words against him, "Thus you shall say to Joseph, I beg you, please forgive the trespass of your brothers and their sins for the evil that they did to you. Now please forgive the trespass of the servants of the God of your father." And Joseph wept to think that he had already forgiven them and they didn't believe him. He had already brought them in and brought their families and their children and everything else, set them up in homes that they didn't build, in country that they didn't own, in a valley that has one of the few places in all Egypt that has water. And he had taken care of them. And now they're going to come and say, "Are you going to kill us for what we did?" He was hurt. He was hurt in his soul. Has anybody ever done anything that just kind of hurt your heart? And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. And then his brothers went and fell down before his face and said, "Behold, we are your servants." Joseph said to them, "Do not be afraid, for I am in the place of God. But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring about, as it is this day, to save many people alive." Joseph can look back. You know, sometimes we have to get perspective. We got to get away from the situation. I told Peggy this morning, I says, "Look, you're right in the middle of this thing. Finish what you got to do, come home, and we'll work it together. You're too close to the situation. It's too harsh right now. You need to back off a little bit and get some perspective. Bring it here, we'll handle it." Okay? Those things happen in your life. And sometimes you got to be able to step back. Joseph is able to step back and see everything from the time that they ripped the coat off his back to this day. God had planned to save his people from starving to death, like other nations were doing at that time. They were literally starving to death. Okay? But he protected his people and brought them there and put them in a good place and has protected them. He sent Joseph beforehand. And Joseph recognizes that. His brothers can't see it. All they see is, we might be in trouble. How do we handle this? How do we handle Joseph? And it was grieving Joseph's heart. "Now therefore do not be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones." And he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. The death of Joseph. Joseph lived a long life. The Egyptians remembered all that Joseph did and made sure that Joseph's life and his family's life were honored and protected and taken care of all the days of Joseph. And Joseph dwelt in Egypt and his father's household. And Joseph lived 110 years, not as long as his father lived, but he lived for 110 years. And Joseph saw Ephraim's children to the third generation. So it'd be Joseph, father, son, grandson, he got to see his great-grandchildren. And Machir, and the children of Machir, his son of Manasseh, were brought up on his knees. Okay? Now that's precious when you get to spend time with your great-grandkids. I'm not there yet. I got grandkids. I don't have any great-grandkids. I don't know if I'll be around long enough to see that. I don't know. Let's see. I got 7 granddaughters that are over the age of 17 now. It may not be too long. And Joseph said to the brethren, I am dying, but God will surely visit you and bring you up out of this land of which he has sworn to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Joseph took an oath of the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here. Don't leave me here. No matter how long it is, you keep my bones in something, and the Egyptians have a bone box thing that they use, and you hang on to them until you leave here and you go back to Canaan and you take me with you. Don't leave me here in Egypt. So Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt. Okay? So we're leaving the story of Joseph, and we're fixing to go into the next section, which is Exodus. And I love the way it starts out. And there arose a new king, a new Pharaoh, over Egypt, who did not know Joseph, did not remember the things that Joseph had done, and how Joseph had saved the nation. And that's the next part of the story. But let's stick with this. Family. Family's important. Honoring your father and your mother is important. Joseph did that in every way he could. He took care of his father's family. He did not bring back on the heads of his brothers what they deserved. You know, that's a God attribute. Okay? It's a God attribute. To not return on somebody's head what they deserve because of what they did to you. He didn't take retribution. He was able to see God's hand in everything that had happened. And using one of those rare times when a human can actually touch what God has in his heart. That's how Joseph acted. And he didn't take retribution on his brothers. He could have. He had all the power of Egypt. He could have rained down hardship on them. He could have put them in prison. He could have put them to death. All it would have taken was, he was the second ruler of Egypt. All it would have taken is a word. Isn't it great that Joseph wasn't as vengeful as some people that I and probably you know? And he saved his nation. And his nation grew because of it. Sometimes we have to be able to step out of ourselves, step above ourselves, and do more than what we as a human would feel was right. What does God feel is right? Sometimes you have to ask yourself, what does God feel is right? Father, thank you for this wonderful story. And thank you how it is presented to where all the opportunity for retribution was there and it was not taken. Now Joseph, he honored Jacob, his father. He followed the instructions of his father. And then when it was his time to die, he did not say, okay, you know all that stuff my brothers did, I want you to take it out on them. No, he forgave them. Those are the qualities we're supposed to have. Those are the qualities that Jesus wants out of us. Sometimes we have to forgive the unforgivable. Sometimes we have to love the unlovable. But that is what we're called to as Christians. So I thank you for this wonderful story that you presented today, Father, and what it means to us. As we switch to our family time, if there's something in your heart, something going on in your family, something going on in your life, a hardship, something that hurts your heart, now's that time you can take it to your Father. He's got his hand cupped to his ear. He loves hearing from his children. He wants to hear whatever is burdening you. You need to talk to your pastor, I'm up here. If you need to just come stand at the, kneel at the altar, it's available. If you need to come see me afterwards, I'll be here. But whatever it is that you need at this time, maybe it's just to sit in your seat and pray during the time as we sing. But whatever it is, your Father is listening to you right now. He loves you and He cares about you. Talk to Him during this time. In Jesus Christ's name, amen. Well, thank you for joining us here in Frontenac Baptist Church. I hope you got something out of this sermon series. I hope it blessed your heart. Once again, thank you for joining us here at Frontenac Baptist Church, and go forth.